Good evening. This is the City of Twinsburg Planning Commission meeting for Monday, March 7th, 2022. Roll call.
Mr. Shipley,
Here.
Mr. Metropolis,
Here.
Mr. Kleinman,
Here.
Mr. Cohen,
Present.
Mr. Shebeck.
Present.
If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We begin this evening with our work session. The first item on the agenda, the site plan review for the industrial buildings at 2321 and 2387 Old Mill Road. Mr. Weber, if you can come forward, name, address, and overview for this evening.
My name is Matthew Weber. I'm with Weber Engineering Services, 2555 Hartville Road, Woodstown, Ohio, 44272. Here on behalf of Scannell Properties and the project known as Project Gumbo on Old Mill Road. We've been before the Planning Commission on a number of projects here in the city of Twinsburg, and many times to empty rooms, so it's actually nice to see public participation and interest in a project. We have, this project consists of two buildings. One is 156,000 square feet. The other is a 299,000 square foot building for a total of 515,000 square feet, roughly 400 parking spaces, stormwater detention, auto or trailer parking, if you will, truck, let's call it a truck court, and trailer parking, central to both buildings. This allows the truck activity to be screened and shielded from two sides. The parcel is an industrial district, zoned appropriately, and we meet all the setbacks, and we're not requesting any variances for this project. To that, I believe the one side of the property is zoned R2 on the east. All other sides are zoned I2, and we're here for a work session. I will say that Lynn has prepared a nice, I believe, a staff report, if you will. It sounds like a lot of questions have been asked. Her comments have answered many of those, and so I'll open it up to you all for questions of me, and then leave the rest of the meeting to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weber. A few questions for you. I'll start us off. Could you give us an update? I know there was a notice of violation from SSWCD. What's the status of remediation and reinspection?
Remediation has been completed as of Thursday. I believe we submitted some photographs, aerial photographs, if you will, that were taken on Saturday. The site has been, the disturbed areas that needed to or have been strawed and stabilized. We have requested an additional site inspection for that and provided those same photographs to Summit Soil and Water as well.
So you don't know when they're coming out yet, though?
I don't, I submitted those this morning. We got them, the photographs were on Sunday or Saturday, and I submitted those this morning. So I don't know when that'll happen. We've requested that I think they might come out regularly on Thursdays, but I'll follow up with them this evening.
Yeah, it would be nice to have that prior to the next meeting if possible. Also, Lynn, in your responses to some of mine and other questions, it was noted that there's some additional study underway related to, I guess, the groundwater and stormwater detention, and it said there should be additional data with further direct site design. any additional information on what's being done in that regards?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when we submitted our plans based on the Ohio EPA's recommendations for the liner, we also work very closely with Mike Mendoz. He is a PhD. He's with Hydrosphere Engineering, and I've actually had a conversation with him. He's reviewed the preliminary information, has no concerns whatsoever in his vast experience, but we will, if it is upon the recommendation of Planning Commission and Engineering, provide a full report as necessary to at least identify the fact that from the information that he has to this point, we're doing additional geotechnical information or research and data. But yeah, we've taken that seriously because we understand it's a concern, and it's a concern that can, through data and the proper research, be put to rest from that perspective.
You are also, I assume, working on an updated landscape plan based on the comments that were made as far as the screening to the residential.
I will say, I believe we've actually addressed all of those. I know we made a resubmittal of the landscape plan, but to that point, absolutely, we've received some comments back. We've addressed those comments, and then we will address any further comments as necessary.
That's not something that we.
Mr. Weber maybe didn't get the further comments.
Are there additional comments? Okay.
I think so.
All right.
Oh.
So we will certainly, as we normally would, we would certainly address any additional comments.
All right, yeah, it has to do with the opacity within so many years, and based on the size and the spacing, there were
Right.
some comments that.
Yeah, 80. I think it's 80% is what's correct. Yeah, 5 years or
In 4 years, I think it is.
Right,
Okay.
if I could just interject one other, I was sort of waiting to see what the status was with the residential lot that was internal to the site.
Okay.
Because I thought if there was.
Residential use, but I zone.
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay. And then Lynn, the last one, you can just give an update. I know that I guess we're waiting for the city's consultant on the traffic study to finish, to do the review, so we have those comments back as well.
exactly. And on top of waiting for that, the city engineer was out of the office last week, so we didn't really make progress last week in terms of staff review of the traffic impact study.
And the traffic impact study has been submitted to Summit County Engineer's Office, as they are participants in the road. They have that for review. Your city staff has it review and has made some general comments, which we have addressed, and then we know we're waiting for the outside consultant review that you requested, so yes.
All right, David.
Do you have a rough sense of where the trucks are going to be traveling from these buildings, where they're going to? I'm guessing probably towards 480
Yes.
Highland Road.
Yes. I'm sorry, were you continuing? Okay.
No.
All right, yeah, it would be 480. The traffic will be heading, and we actually have isolated a directional entrance, if you will, so that the exit is a right turn out, so it forces truck traffic to 91, which then would be the short route to 480.
My concern with dumping probably a lot of vehicular traffic, including truck traffic, onto Old Mill Road is the light that's there at the intersection with 91 is extremely slow, so I'm hoping they're going to speed that up. But in general, if all the trucks are going to be traveling probably north on 91 to get to either Highland Road or to 480, why does it make sense to dump them on Old Mill as opposed to directly onto 91? To me, that doesn't make any sense. I drive that road, and full disclosure, I'm also a cyclist, and we go up and down Old Mill. It's already bad to begin with, and now I have this additional truck traffic and other vehicles. It's going to be a nightmare, and that road is really not meant for that. Even with the improvements, to me, it doesn't make sense to increase the traffic on Old Mill for 500 feet. Let's put them directly on 91 and let them go on their way.
Currently, there's no access directly from these parcels to 91.
Could there be?
I mean, I believe there's always opportunity that there could be.
Is that something that can be explored?
We could certainly explore it.
Maybe a good idea to do that. I guess my next question is, I don't know if it's directed to you or to Lynn. Does the city have any requirements for developers when they clear cut land and they fell all the trees? I mean, I was kind of taken aback when I saw that last year. To replant trees either on the property or around the city. Do we have any requirements for developers to do that?
There's a fee associated with the cutting permit, and there's also a requirement in the landscaping chapter for X number of trees per acre, depending on the land use.
But we don't require anybody to then replant the trees that have fell to make up for what's been lost.
No, the requirement is 10 site trees per acre, the buffer landscaping, the parking lot light landscaping.
Because my concern with a project like this and others is that, you know, when we went over the plan for the city, I don't understand how we're ever going to make our goals of reducing carbon emissions if we let developers cut all these trees down. I don't know how we're going to meet those goals. Carbon reduction is never going to happen.
The space being taken up by the buildings and the asphalt on this site doesn't really, we're barely able to meet the required tree planting with the various landscaping requirements. We're squeezing those on the site as it is.
Yeah. That may be something that I should bring up to council. I don't see how we're ever going to reach our climate goals if we keep knocking all these trees down.
I think the sustainability aspect that we were talking about in the last meeting has to do with what we can do on city property as far as maintaining and trying to increase that. It's a little bit harder when you're dealing with private developers who are developing within the regulations of our zoning code. So I understand what you're saying overall. Yeah, it is hard to regulate that without changing the zoning code, I guess.
Right, but I know that one of Larry's points was that it can't just be the city doing everything on its own property. We have to get the businesses, we have to get the residents involved as one group to try to meet those goals, and he was pretty clear about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's maybe something that we should maybe visit.
I think the challenging part is, you know, when you have industrial zone land you're basically telling a property owner, you can't build on your property. I mean, that's the challenging part of, and that's even goes residential. I mean, someone could buy a residential lot and needs to be clear to build a home. If we're saying, well, no, you can't put down all trees on it.
Well, it's not necessarily that you cut down the trees, but there has to be an offset. Is I guess what I'm driving at is that we have to have some kind of offset. If you're going to take out hundreds of trees, I don't want to monopolize the meeting by doing that, but we have to create some kind of offset. That's all.
Right. The offset on this site is a required 265 site trees.
Yeah, we're replanting 265 trees.
That's good to know.
It's because the code is, I think, 8 trees per acre of disturbance. So we take that times 8, and it comes out to be, I think we need 265 additional trees to meet that.
And then there's a charge per tree that is removed, which is put into the city street tree fund.
Right.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Steve?
So, just a quick question. Looks like you have 3 drives. You mentioned that the central drive is going to be the truck traffic drive.
Correct, yes.
How are the trucks going to enter if it's right turn only out?
They can still make a left turn in.
Okay.
Yes, so there's a designated left turn lane
Okay.
for that, and then they can turn in left, but
Okay.
they're directed out, right?
And that's going to be enforced with signage? So
Yes, it'll be signage, and we'll work through it with the city, but it can be signage, but then, we can also do, ODOT has different requirements for access, whether it's a raised, like a raised concrete curbed area or whatnot. So we'll work to that. We'll also work with fire to make sure adequate access is available.
Okay.
Can you kind of give a little overview as to what is currently proposed for the improvements on Old Mill Road from 91 heading east, as far as increasing pavement width, turning lanes, and what you're
Certainly.
doing?
And again, I'll speak, we have submitted plans for that. Because all of the work is intended to be within city property. So the intended improvements are all on the north side of the road. It would be, we'll call it a 12-foot additional paved area that will, at first, and per the traffic impact study, it was just required to address the right turn in, or the left turn in and right turn out at the truck court, and it was just for truck traffic. I don't know if you've seen, has the alternate set of plans been, is there 3, 2 set of
Yeah,
plans?
they
Okay.
received those.
So as of the first, I believe engineering came back with a request that we extend the left turn lane to include and incorporate the Westernmost auto entrance as well. So we've extended that. So you're going to have about a 12-foot wide improvement on the north side, which would be on the city side of the street, that will go from, let's just say for now, it'd be at the center point of the site, which is roughly the truck entrance to the west, and then there's tapering that has to occur. So the taper will go to the east to account for the lane paint striping, and it'll also go to the west. The total length of that is, should have probably had stronger glasses here, but it's a couple thousand feet.
Thank you. Steve, is there anything else?
No.
Pete?
Gentlemen, I will be recusing myself from discussing and voting on this map. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig?
I guess just the water is obviously a major issue. Cleanliness of the water and what additional study is going on for the water study? Like what is it looking at?
It'll be a full, I mean, we can perform a full hydrologic study. We have, like I said, Mike Meadows from Hydrosphere Engineering. He's done a lot of different work for us. He's a PhD, has fantastic credentials, and he's done different work for us. But he'll take, and they're going to do additional geotechnical research to determine exactly the condition of the sandstone, more down in the pond areas. The EPA's already provided some preliminary data that shows the groundwater flow. There's also mapping of all the wells in the area. I believe it was even recommended that that anyone downstream of this of the pond set a baseline or a datum for their water source, and it can be tested. But the pond's going to be lined. Right now, we're planning on a 2-foot clay layer because that's what the original engineering and preliminary data has indicated would be more than sufficient. And flow of any contaminants, any potential contaminants, because again, it's just potential contaminants in any water source. Through a 2-foot clay layer is more than adequate to safely protect downstream wells or any surrounding wells.
Gotcha. And
That's our preliminary discussion.
right. And the concern of recharge of the groundwater, will that be addressed in that hydro study?
We certainly can.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be any depletion of groundwater necessarily, because the area of development is small in comparison to the overall surface area. But that is certainly something that can be addressed
Okay.
properly within that we'll study.
Yeah, I think that's something that we should address because it's a concern raised by the citizens.
Sure.
And then I guess the 80%
Opacity.
opacity rate. Thank you. Sorry. So I guess that is something that it appears like you were planning to plant trees 17 feet apart, is what I read, and we need to plant them a little closer to increase that opacity. Is that something you're aware of, or that's going to be discussed going forward, or
Right, that comment, Matt.
or 12
was-
feet apart? Sorry.
Planning Commission speaking to a statement I made in response maybe to a resident comment. And so I think we were at like 16 or 17 feet for the trees at your frontage.
Yeah.
I think we need to go to like 12.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm sure that's something you would
Yeah.
probably address.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, obviously, we've done a number of projects in the city, and we work through that. We certainly can work through that to make sure that everyone is satisfied that the screening is
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah, those are the two hot topics that I see that I would be concerned about. So thank you.
Craig, to your first point, Lynn provided, I don't know if you remember seeing this map, but it kind of shows the areas of the community that where the groundwater runs in the direction it goes, so that you can see how much area, even, around this site,
That will still.
that will still help feed it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, I think those are the two main things. Thank you.
Scott, did you have any comments or questions?
Yes.
Nothing right off the top of my head, other than appreciate the willingness to go through the hydrological survey. That seems to be an area of concern. People have reached out to me about that. Lynn responded to some of the comments regarding tree planting and things of that nature. From the city side, the two hot button issues is that anybody else on council that I've heard are just concerned about the increased traffic, and they're certainly concerned about the ones. So as long as we satisfactorily address those to the agreement of both parties, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
No, I think I agree with Scott. I mean, there is really three issues, protection of the aquifer, the groundwater issues, the screening, for the residents, in terms of the maturity of the tree, like what the landscape and what you're proposing, if you grow fast and then you get large. And then the traffic, and I have reviewed your traffic study today. I know we're going to follow over on the traffic study to make sure that we can monitor that. I know, truck traffic going east is really not prohibited, so we're trying to contain that traffic west of the 91. But those are the things that I know in this review we're going to talk about.
Certainly.
We get addressed.
Thank you. Lynn, anything else on this?
I had spoken with Mr. Kegler earlier today regarding development of the Cifron site back in the day by Concord Mills. And it seemed like there was some thought that there was a condition on that site for a public roadway. I was able to locate the minutes from that meeting, and one of the requirements was an additional 10 feet be dedicated on Old Mill Road. That was done. Another condition was that a future development of the Concord Mill property would use the private drive for access and would bring that up to a public roadway standard. Planning Commission was on the right track when they required that, but there was not a right-of-way dedicated to the point that Mr. Kleinman made. There's really not a location for a public roadway at this point. The Cifron building is blocking it. If there would have been a right-of-way dedicated at that time, then we'd have something to talk about, but it wasn't dedicated. The property instead was sold to the Cleveland Clinic, and then to Skinnell Properties. So a public roadway from Case or from Summit Commerce Park really isn't an option. Old Mill is the public access to this site.
All right, anything else, Lynn?
That's it.
All right, Mr. Weber, if you'd like to have a seat now, unless you have any closing comments you'd like to make.
No, I'm good, and I'm sure if you need me, I will be willing to come back up.
All right, well, we're going to roll into the regular meeting portion then of the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it's 7:30, regular meeting agenda, and it starts out with public participation. So public participation is the opportunity for members of the community to address Planning Commission. If you would like to speak, please come forward, give your name and address. Limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes, please. Please do not speak on a topic that has already been covered by a previous person unless you have new, different, or additional information to share. If your topic has already been addressed, but you would still like to be on the record, you can still come forward and give your name and address and the item or items that you either support or have concerns or issues with. What we don't want is to hear the same comments over and over again. We will be listening carefully to what everybody says so that we get that information. Thank you for following these rules this evening. We appreciate your help in doing so. That being said, first person would like to come forward and start.
Hello. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me here. I don't do this on the
No problem.
regular. I did make some notes. I did not
I'm sorry.
know.
Start
Oh,
with
okay.
name
My
and
name is
address,
Dawn
please.
Sikowski.
Thank you.
I live at 2445 Old Mill, Hudson, Ohio, but we are the city of Twinsburg. We are one of the few houses who are part of the city. I came with a very short, quick, put it together. I'll start it off. I've been on the street for 46 years. My mom was raised here, my grandparents were here, my brother's here. We bought our home in 2005. It was a little, quaint little house. We decided we love it here. We outgrew it with our 4 kids. So we built onto it. We built an addition. We love it here. We love our neighbors. Have you guys been, I know you've been to Old Mill. Have you guys visited Old Mill? Have you like really come and looked at the neighborhood and the whole feel of it? It's a different world. It's not a development. It is a community. It is, we are all friends. We all know each other well. Most of the people on Old Mill, Stowe Road, that whole area are 2nd and 3rd generations. Kids graduate high school, they buy their parents' houses, their parents move to a condo, the kids take over the land. And then they have kids, and then it moves on and on. I can probably think of 6 off the top of my head that are 3rd generations. We plan on having our kids take over our home when they all graduate. Somebody's gonna get it. And we're gonna move to something smaller, and they can take care of the yard. We are all, everyone in this room is very, very proud of where they live. Very proud. We all take good care of each other, good care of our homes, good care of our land. You don't see a whole lot of crime on Old Mill. You don't, we live in a little bit of a different world than a lot of communities. We're here. I started off because I'm the oldest, you know, in the room. So I got to start first, and we are here for you guys as our leaders, and it sounds like we're all on the same page at this point. You guys are here to protect us. These are our homes. These are our families. These are our livelihoods. We're all worried. We're all worried sick. We all have well water. We all have sewer. There's no city water anywhere near us. Our big 4, and you've hit on 2 of them, is the water supply and the traffic safety. Another one to consider is our home values. Maybe our home values won't change for tax purposes, but for resale, they're going to change. If you were at my house 2 years ago, and you say, oh, this is worth this, now you have what looks like a war zone next to our homes. And you've seen it. It looks like a war zone. Everything's gone. No one's going to give me the same amount of money if I wanted to sell my house today as they would have 2 years ago. So you can't say that our home values are not diminished by the project. And I understand it's a business. It was zoned industrial. It is what it is, but here we are. There's also a concern of safety for our families. I don't know where everyone else lives, but I think that there's not a person in this room that would be a little bit concerned with an industrial building being 150 feet from their homes, where their kids are playing outside. People are working. People that don't work there are pulling in. It's a public place. They're seeing our garage doors open because we're hanging out. They see our boats. They see our cars. I feel a little bit uneasy with this, just as far as a safety standpoint. Well water is something that not everyone understands. Probably the majority of people have not used well water. Well water kind of has a bad name. It's kind of the stinky, yellow, smelly, tastes funny. Not our well water. Our well water is amazing. We all drink it straight from the faucet. We make our coffee from it. And we cook our meals for our kids with it. It's fantastic. The risk that we have of either the quantity or quality of our well water being diminished by the project is high. You have diesel trucks pulling in, you have trucks pulling in, dripping gas, dripping oil, you have pavement, you have asphalt, all of those have chemicals in those. And those are all gonna seep into our wells. Some of our wells are really deep, and some of our wells are really shallow. There's a risk to all of this. I know it's going to happen, and I'm glad to hear that there's going to be research done, but you can do the research now. And what do you find in 5 years that there's contaminants in our water and we've been drinking it this whole time? These are some of the reasons why we're worried, we're afraid. Yes, we can all get well water, or city water. We can all get it run down. Do we need to do that?
Need you to wrap up, please.
I know, I had one more thing I wanted to say, and I'm just looking at it because I didn't read from it. I read it so many times to myself that I almost had it memorized verbatim. So I went first. I'm gonna let my friends here take over, kind of just giving you a brief
Setting
on
the
where we
stage.
are. We are here to work with you guys, okay? We're not here to battle, we're here to work with you. Thank you for your time,
Same here.
and thank you for supporting us.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Rob Kegler. I'm Township Manager with Twinsburg Township, 1790 Enterprise Parkway, Twinsburg, Ohio, 44087. Also, by way of background, I've been a planner in practice, public and private sectors for the past 30 years, so I have relevant experience to what you're all reviewing here tonight. Just on behalf of the township and the residents, I wanted to comment on a couple of aspects to the plan. I was going to end with coordinated access, which Mr. Kleinman had asked about and Ms. Muter had commented on, but I think I'd rather just start with it. And I appreciate Ms. Muter taking the time to look up the old condition. I asked her about it earlier today. I'd heard about it through local lore. It's been 30 years since the original building was built, like maybe in '92. But I didn't know if it was for real. I went to the Twinsburg Library today, got newsprint all over my hand, pulled bulletins from '92 and '93, and I couldn't find anything there. So thank you for finding that. Rather than simply saying you can't do it, that access can't be provided, if it was a condition of the site plan for that original. I know it was Consolidated Plastics at Concord
Mill.
Concord Mill.
Yeah.
When it was originally built. If that was a site plan condition by this commission and this city, then that's something that I would think is an obligation on that property owner. All the property that's the subject of this application tonight was part of that property at the time that it was approved. It was split off. The city had a couple of bites at the apple when the original building was built, when the addition was built 2 years later, and then a couple years ago when the latest addition was built, to implement that condition by requiring easements to be recorded. Those easements could be easements for shared access driveways, they could be easements to become a dedicated road. For whatever reason it doesn't appear to have done, but rather than just dismissing it and saying it can't be provided, I would suggest maybe taking a step back, putting your foot down and saying, no, this was our requirement. This is something that you're going to require the original property owner and the successor property owners to do. Certainly it's been 30 years. It hasn't been taken care of. There's going to be some difficult conversations, but it's going to have some great benefits, and here's some reasons why. First of all, there's one, as it's already been pointed out, the Old Mill and 91 signal, and I can't remember what was pointed out up here, is overstressed and overused. The wait times are long, and as part of whatever improvements they're required to do here, you add 400 cars plus all the trucks. That's not only going to require improvements to the laneage along the road and center turn lanes and whatnot, it's also going to require some signalization improvements, I assume. Just north of that, there's two signals, one at Summit Commerce and one at Case Parkway South, both of which are underutilized. Those are four-way signals. The one at Summit Commerce, which is opposite CVS, is actually, they're both four-way signals. The one at Summit Commerce and CVS actually has left turn arrows coming out of CVS. And it was designed to be a road. If it wasn't designed to be extended, I don't know what it was. And I just, from looking at the plans that I had received from Ms. Muter, I just did some thumbnail sketches where you could, and I'm not a traffic engineer, but you could take all the truck traffic out of the north side of the property through Sifron, out their existing access road, out to Summit Commerce. You could take all the car traffic out the south side of this property, parallel to Old Mill Road, and come out opposite Summit Commerce. Sorry, the trucks out to Case South, the cars out to Summit Commerce. You could keep the cars and the trucks segregated. You could have no access to Old Mill Road. The property owner would save hundreds of thousands of dollars in widening Old Mill Road, installing driveways, doing drainage, and everything else that would be associated with that, doing signalization improvements, and could put that towards putting in the access road that the city actually required 30 years ago. That was the last thing I was going to mention. The first thing, and I'm going to try and be brief since it was only 5, there was only 4 things I was going to, 5 minutes, I'm only going to mention 4 things. The first was going to be utilities. I noticed on the plans, water and sewer are proposed to be extended. It's already been expressed some concerns about the well and the septics. My question's about the water line, it appears. Will it be available to property owners along that road? Is it able to be extended further to the east? Will property owners be forced to connect to it? Same thing with the sanitary sewers. Will it be available to property owners? Will they be able to connect to it? Will it be able to be extended? And will they be forced to connect to it? Those all relate to the existing concerns about wellhead protection and septic systems. Regarding that was my only question about utilities. On traffic, I only got through about 135 pages of the 194-page traffic study, and I understand it's going to change anyway, so maybe I'll just stop there. But I noticed there's one center turn lane shown on the plans, but the one center turn lane is at the western driveway, which would be for cars. When I first looked at that, I thought, well, you at least would need the center turn lane where the trucks are going to be. That didn't make sense to me, so I understand that may be a change to the plans. But again, there's 3 driveways. I would assume that if there's going to need to be center turn lanes, there's going to need to be center turn lanes at least at the truck and possibly at the other 2 as well. But ideally, there should be no center turn lanes, no driveways, and coordinated access out to 91.
Need you to finish up, please.
Yep, I will certainly do that. If there's going to be access out to Old Mill Road, and if there has to be, I would make a strong suggestion that driveways be aligned with property lines across the street rather than directly across from houses. The plans should really show opposite side driveways so that headlight glare doesn't end up in someone's living room. It's going to be hard enough for residents to have to deal with the Jake brakes and air brakes as the trucks coming from the west are stopping at the driveway as they're going in all hours of the day and night. And Lastly, landscaping and buffering and screening. It's been mentioned that some's been provided. I did not see much. 265 trees or whatever the actual number was, when you spread that over this number of acres, it's kind of like a pinprick. And especially to those residents across the street who would be most affected by the development, along with the residents on the north side of the street. But if there were no driveways, then you could have a continuous buffer and screen like you do have between Twinsburg Heights and the Cornerstone property, the former Chrysler property. And this commission was good enough when that property went in to put in require sound walls that were between 9 and 22 feet tall in some locations, 100-foot buffer, and evergreen landscaping, all of which has helped, but it still has not eliminated noise and light and all those types of things. I'll summarize everything in detail. I really appreciate the time, and thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you.
To the Honorable Committee here this evening, my name is Matthew Eppley of 2668 Old Mill Road, Twinsburg Township, Ohio, for the past 20 years. I am here this evening to discuss the industrial property development on Old Mill Road. I am pleased that you allow those of us from the township to speak at these meetings, as we are not one of your constituents. We are your neighbors, occasionally considered the redheaded, sorry Mr. Shipley, stepchildren of the city of Twinsburg. However, we are a community. Our children go to school together, we utilize your amazing fire department as needed, we shop at the same stores, and some of us are even old enough to have shopped in and remember why Messrs. Plaza is called Messrs. Plaza. On patriotic holidays, my wife, my children, and myself, through the Rotary Club, put flags in at least one of your yards, so to say we are a community is pretty accurate. Mr. Yates even complimented my children on Patriots Day celebration at the square for handing out flags to those in attendance. We on Old Mill enjoy a little bit more property than maybe the city's average residents. We are proud of our properties, land, surroundings, and enjoy the beauty, serenity, and more rural nature of the street. I come to this committee to discuss a few facts and present my opinion of what is about to happen on Old Mill Road. To my knowledge, I wanted to make this committee fully aware that all houses on Old Mill Road have well and/or spring water as their water source for their homes. This project is going to impact the flow, abundance, and frankly, the content of pollution of our drinking water. I am not an environmental expert by any means, but by former trade, I was a truck driver and know firsthand the ground, water, light, noise, air, traffic, and nuisance pollution the type of facility planned here creates. I am concerned that by allowing the displacement of the amount of water in an industrialized project of this magnitude will impact our wells and springs. I do know that by my current profession, the long-term solution to this would be to continue the water line street to allow everyone to tap into it, but at whose cost? Ours as the residents through some sort of tax assessment plan, the cities, the counties, whose cost? Especially when we already have perfectly good water. And if I may project for a moment, to run a water line down the street from this facility to the 480 bridge and allow the residents to tap into this utility, there should be 2 lines ran down the street so the water at the end of the line does not remain stagnant and become unsanitary. And to go one step further, if I may, if we start to use city water and we are running it through our septic systems, it won't be long before the septic systems fail due to the chlorine in the water killing the bacteria needed to run an effective septic system, resulting in either needing replaced, more frequent pumpings, or sanitary sewers installed on the street. Again, at whose cost? Ours as the residents, the cities, the counties, whose cost? This is a long way of saying this is the first domino to fall in a long line of things that truly we don't know what we don't know. Could, probably, and will happen to the neighbors and friends on Old Mill Road. Unfortunately, I do not have an easy answer to this problem. I am not aware if the city can make some sort of arrangement with the Cifron Company to allow a road to be put off of 91 to eliminate at least the traffic concerns, which are numerous alone. I believe this will negatively impact the property values of all the surrounding homes. I truly feel bad for those who are the immediate neighbors of this project. I also feel for those who have lived on Old Mill Road for most, if not their entire lives, and will now have to stare at a warehouse distribution facility or a light industrial facility henceforth. I want to make this committee fully aware that this will be the only industrial complex with an actual Old Mill Road address. Before I leave you today, I would like to depart with a quote from Mark Twain. You're never wrong for doing the right thing. I guess it just depends on what you consider what the right thing here to do is. With the interlacing of the township and the city, if the roles in this scenario were reversed, if the township had land off of Glenwood or Post or Liberty, or maybe over time fell through the cracks, as it obviously did, and was about to be developed into an industrial building as large as the ones at the old Chrysler plant area, say being built next to Abrams Farms or bordering the Ethan's Greens area, the amount of passion, energy, and fervor that this committee would be compelled to use to prevent that from happening could only be imagined. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else wish to come forward?
Good evening. My name is Mark Sikowski. I live at 2445 Old Mill Road, 2 doors down adjacent from this commercial building. The biggest things I have is lighting issues. I was talking with Lynn a couple days ago, and she said something about a wall being built going down Hutchinson's property line. And what height is that wall going to be built at? And then are the lights in the building taller than what the wall is going to be, or lower than the wall, to stop some of the light pollution from my house? So, you know, I mean, we live in the woods, so basically I don't have to have curtains. But now I have to go buy curtains because of this. Another thing would be, I guess you already did a road, you call them road improvements. I guess I'd call it a disimprovement, basically. I think I'm on the same page as Dave. I think that somehow that this committee needs to figure out how that they can push this road up to Summer Commerce Road to get all the truck traffic off of Old Mill. You know, it's, if you travel Old Mill all day long, you'll understand it's not an easy road to go up and down. You know, it's 45, but everybody's doing 65, 75. And now you're gonna get trucks that are there that can't even do the speed limit half the time. Another thing was landscaping. You know, you took 32 acres of basically wooded lot, and you're putting 5.6% landscaping back on 32 acres. It should be more than what that is. I mean, I understand that whatever bill was originally set is there to meet the requirements, but that should be something that should be changed in the future. You know, this is where we live. This isn't a commercial area. This is a residential area, and now it's turning to commercial. So, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Hi, Jim Baylog, 8944 Ravenna Road, Twinsburg, Ohio, serving as a township trustee. Regularly in our meetings, our residents come before us and ask us to find solutions to many issues that affect us in the township. And I just want to come forth and say I support Mr. Kleiman's comments about redirecting traffic directly to 91 from this parcel of properties. Secondly, I ask that this board embrace the suggestions that Rob Kegler made about, he actually drew plans that could help you see what would be a really good way to solve this problem of getting the truck traffic off of Old Mill Road. And that's what I'd like to see. And I do appreciate Lynn's help in finding that information for Rob and everything else, and all your insight into this project. But I really hope that, you know, as one leader to another, that we find a way to create a solution for this that goes beyond what has already been suggested, because I think there is a solution out there. We just have to look harder and find it. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brad Gallard, 2258 Old Mill Road, Hudson, Ohio, 44236. My traffic concerns have obviously been addressed. I also have a Class A CDL. And pulling a 53-footer with a double sleeper, it's not gonna be pretty on Old Mill. I also have a concern, is this a 24/7 facility? Am I gonna listen to trucks beeping all night long when I have my windows open in the summer? I don't wanna hear that. I also have a concern, which is also slightly addressed. I mean, I have my share of collectible vehicles, boats. And yeah, I have my garage doors open in the summer, so it's ventilated. I don't need another set of eyes of people that are coming and going out of what kind of place is this gonna be? I don't know. So, the concern of the security part of it. I've got a concern about the traffic, and of course my water. I mean, most people are going to buy a bottled water. We got it coming out of our faucets. So that's all I wanted to mention. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name's Steve Hummel, 2500 Old Mill Road, Hudson, Ohio, 44236. A little bit of background, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Agricultural Engineering from the University of Kentucky. I have a Master's from the University of Kentucky in Agricultural Engineering. Both of those disciplines were in hydrology and sedimentology and soil and water engineering. So I'm keenly aware of everything that's going on this site, more so than anybody in this room, except maybe Lynn. We're talking about geotechnical engineers. They do borings to see what kind of compaction you're going to do for the soil. What we want to get in there is a geohydrologist. When I did landfill design in Pennsylvania, a geohydrology report would take a solid year. They would grid and they'd have to do boring wells all around to see what the groundwater rise and fall was. That's not a quick process. No. Everybody was made aware of this issue about the groundwater last spring when Lynn brought it up. Nothing happened. One little boring and then we got to take our water samples. That don't cut the mustard here. Everybody in this room should be talking about our water because you don't live many days without good water. We got excellent water. And you know, they're bringing the sewer lines. So I don't want to get off course here because I got some things to say. That's where I want to start. The theme of this is tonight. I could do this, Scannell, maybe, depending on what the ordinance was allowed for. But should I? I could take candy from a baby, but should I? Now conceptualize your home. What you're looking at are 3 roads. Those ain't driveways. Those are roads facing right to the other side of the street, with 35-foot buildings and 300 lights. This is what you're looking at every day. You've got all the problems with the light pollution, noise, all that. Now think about this. Wherever you guys live, you got a neighbor across the street. I'm gonna go talk to all your neighbors. I'm gonna offer them $100 a month to turn their high beam headlights on, to slam their garage door up and down every night, and to bang their garbage cans and burn some smelly, oily rags in their burn pits that the city allows to have. But you know what? I can bet you $1 to a donut, not one of your neighbors across the street would do that to you. I have faith in that. Because neighbors don't do that to each other, do they?
No.
Of course not. But that's the conceptualization you people need to look at, because what you're looking at is hideous. I saw them plans, it made me sick. That is a complete abuse of that land. I don't care if it's light industrial or not. I had some guy tell me, why'd you move there? Guess what? There's been people who have been here 60 years. That used to be township land until the city annexed it because the guy at CP Plastics wanted to have some industry. You know, and then all them arrangements went out the window, like the buffer strip and the pines that were planted over there. Everybody forgot about that in the agreement that Rod talked about. Oh, we don't have it as a right of way. What kind of planners are in this city? When I had oil and gas lines across the back of my property, I made sure I got stuff recorded with the county. Who am I? I'm nothing. I go down your industrial parks, and they're all busted up. The way they're laid out, you have no interconductivity back there. Mustang Dynamics is a circle. You can't get anything across. You know, there's no transportation boulevard like in Garfield Heights. You could have alleviated all the flow on 91 if back in the 50s and 60s you would have put something and got all that truck traffic down toward 480. But that horse is left to stable, I guess. But you know what? There's time to at least, you know, we're at the end of the line now, Old Mill. So, Roman numeral 1, accountability and transparency. You know, now, I read some of the correspondence between, I've seen some correspondence. I don't even want to get into it. The correspondence that I read about if we can get this Campbell to sell and this and that, instead of sticking up for that poor woman who's got 3 sides and the main truck driveway is 20 feet from their bedroom. That poor house right there. We'll see if we can squeeze them, push them out, see if they'll buy. What can we give them? Nobody wants to leave. We don't want to leave. We got that going on this side, and on the other side we had something in the township where the developer was trying to harass everybody into selling. Nobody wanted to sell. But when you got an announcement of 200 apartments on this side of the road and warehouses on this side of the road, the residents on Old Mill are going, should I sell? I don't want to do it to my neighbors. I love my neighbors. And this is the predicament we've been put in at this juncture in time. I talked to the Army Corps, I know. They never came out and visited the site. They reviewed the plans, didn't visit the site. They gave a jurisdictional fill permit for wetlands. And then the Ohio EPA mitigated some of them wetlands at some place in Medina. What about our wetlands that feed our wells? It's great that you did a mitigation process somewhere else, but what about leaving our wetlands alone? Because those wetlands and all those intermittent streams are the upland flow for the watershed. And that's where a problem, I don't mean to give everybody an education here, but that's why we have all these problems with flooding. And we don't want to protect the upland flow. Thank God the ordinance states that you have good riparian laws here, because House Bill 175 just crushed down the ephemeral streams. But thank God Twinsburg has these codes in here, 1175. That's going to protect my riparian zone, see? Because thankfully I saw that, because I see that you guys are more stringent in your attitudes about protection than some of these other agencies that are being pressured because of developers. Because you can see the benefit of taking care of the environment. I see that. So at this point, the way they allowed them to clear cut that wasn't a proper protocol. They should have been clearing and seeding and grading. They had numerous violations on that site. So these are just all to the buildup of this, see? The buildup. But like I said, thankfully I realized that the city has an overarching, robust, and stringent ordinance as well as a current sustainability policy that you guys just enacted. That's going to exceed the aforementioned agencies that kind of just punted the ball down the road. The Ohio EPA, Brian at the Soil and Water District, Keith down in Buffalo that never came out. They found endangered species on that whole site. And so that's what I see. That's about the accountability and transparency here. We didn't know anything about this. They came in and cleared, nobody got notified. That's how you operate. I wonder if any of the residents actually even got a letter that this was going to happen. This is a special meeting. Typically you get public notice for special meetings. Number 2, the reality. This is the reality. This Gumbo project.
Excuse me, you're going to need
no,
to.
I'm not done.
You have 5
I am
minutes.
not done.
If you,
This Gumbo, I'm not done, sir.
you have to wrap it up, please.
I won't. You gave Rob a little time, you're going to give me some time now. This Gumbo project, great name. Great name, Gumbo. You know what Gumbo means to a soil engineer? It's a slick, silty loam that when saturated is impervious. That's great. The other thing, now wait a minute. This thing about lining the pond, they're capitulating that they're creating some contaminants. Typically when you build a pond, what you want that pond to do, Mark, what you want that pond to do is have wet detention so that that flow percolates down and recharges our aquifer. But because you're worried about contaminants, you got to line it. Now, if you got involved with like West Creek Land Conservancy, what you could do is take all the stormwater flow, run it through a whole series of wetland cattails that are artificially generated, then put it into these ponds, and maybe you could use that water to go in. But no. So those are the things, ethical standards. These plans are a no-go. I reviewed 97K commercial, the commerce one there. I have some problems because they designed a pond with the limitation that's going into Cifron at an invert elevation. They can't even make grade to just empty their pond. Now we get to section 3, sustainability. And I want to read this. Us guys, we are the epitome of sustainability. The people, the neighbors along Old Mill, for that matter, Ravenna and Stowe, all along through there, of everywhere in the city and township, I would say that we rank near at the top of achieving the mission statements of your sustainability policy. We do. Our area does. This policy that you just enacted. Take a drive, do some research. I mean, from horse farms to nurseries, mom and pop businesses, large woodlots, multi-generational farms, forests with burbling brooks, conservation easements, 40 acres that I'm worried about these guys destroying. Historic places. The oldest home in Twinsburg is right down there, and he's going to potentially lose his well water. Little homesteads practicing animal husbandry. Right there. All in harmony. The Old Mill Road neighborhood. Now this is a community, and your ordinance doesn't, a community isn't, a community is a community. That means we're in the township, but we're in your community. So I say long live and stay strong and friendly. And Skinnell, why don't you show us about what you can do to step up and achieve what we've done for decades for sustainability. Here's the compromise that I would give you guys. Because we want to compromise. I'd rather have my conservation easement, 40 acres of beautiful land. When people drive by, they see Kevin's beautiful farm, my land, the horse farms. It's a relief when you ride your bikes up that road. If you're heading to work, you go there, and amongst all the traffic, at least you have a little bit of semblance of niceness. Here's the compromise. 10 pounds of industry in a 6-pound environment. That's a no-go. In other words, gumbo as proposed is unacceptable. Unacceptable. Acceptable conditions on this site, from me being a design engineer, working on $500 million landfills, I'll tell you what the acceptable conditions to me would be. One building, maybe 270,000 square foot, to the north and west of the property, oriented at 90 degrees, with the road going out where Rob's talking. The sewer, that ain't coming down Old Mill, because then that opens up potential development behind me and that acreage that they want to put apartments in. You run that sewer along the same road that they agreed to put in. That's where you put your sewer. Water, if you want to get it down Old Mill, that's a little different story. Sewer don't come down Old Mill. No way. Orientation, the truck traffic ingress, like Rob said, potential auto entrance on the Old Mill. Rob has a better idea, I think. Work in cooperation with Cifron. Obviously, at one time, they should have done that, but they snuck it through and didn't get it in right away because it was sneaky business.
Could you please wrap
Okay,
up, Mr.
so now, let's see here. The remaining 18 acres, south and east. Wait a minute, this is
You've pretty much taken everybody's 5 minutes as far as I'm concerned.
Don't worry.
Right,
Somebody's giving me their time. Who wants to give me their 5 minutes? Thank you, right there.
As
There
long
you
as
go.
all of you have signed up and are on that list, then that's fine.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good job, Steve.
The remaining 18 acres that would be left, you can work with Cifron. The remaining 18 acres, this is when you get some other people involved. You redesign the progressive stormwater quality, the cattails, like I said, effluent of that nature. No wall along Hutchinson's. That's a complete disgrace. That's like being put in a prison for Hutchinson. How dare you people do that? You don't put no berm there either. You raise the elevation and you plant big trees. And then across Old Mill, you do a phalanx of 3 rows of trees, 60 foot, 3 rows, 20 foot apart all the way down. And then you get somebody like West Creek who might be involved up by the heights. You get them involved with some of these things that you can do to reclaim a site, the sustainability part to help the city. And who knows, maybe Skinnell can get involved with the purchase of a property somewhere else, like on Enterprise Parkway, to do the second building. One building is enough, enough over there. Land trade with an entity that owns land on Enterprise Parkway, get the partnership with Wesley Creek Land Conservancy. And you know what? Everybody I think in here might be happy with that, or at least coming close to it. So all I can say now is end of transmission. Thank you.
Someone who did not allocate their 5 minutes of time, Mr. Hummel, would like to come forward now and speak.
Oh, no, I'm gonna turn you off. I didn't allocate my 5 minutes.
You did not.
And then I will announce myself. I'm Lynn Clark. I believe most of us have met at some time before. Live at 2485 Old Mill Road. And know a couple of my predecessors have already mentioned a couple of things. So a lot of studies were done. We finally got the privilege of seeing some of the documentation on how the plan was going to be developed on Thursday, so I haven't had a chance to look at everything. Very encouraged to hear there might be a hydrogeo report. And I think I've told this board or other members of the city, 25 years, that's what I did. I'm a professional engineer with advanced studies in hydrogeology, did lots of work putting in monitor wells, looking for contaminants, cleaning up contaminants. I won't belabor that, mindful of everybody's time and weariness. So a couple of things. When I first saw the trees cut is when I first learned about the development. And since then, I've been trying to find out more and more about it. And I can say lots and lots of time has been invested by the applicant, probably hundreds, if not thousands of man hours. And it's obvious, a lot of attention to detail, looking for the endangered species, the threatened species, lots of soil boring information. But what I didn't see is the data to see how all the work they did aligns with all of the city's ordinances. And we've got environmental ordinances, we have planning ordinances. And when I saw those ordinances, I said, I should feel happy. I should feel comforted because they have terminology in those ordinances that said any kind of community that is now going to be imposed with some new, different kind of land use, it shall be harmonious. Now, I've certainly got some understanding of what I perceive as harmonious. It shall be protective of property values. Now, most of us, every cent we ever made for 30 years went to pay that mortgage. That is the biggest investment we'll ever make. And to have risk associated with that is really something that just looking for the data that says you don't have to worry about that. So again, in alignment with my professional experience, obviously I got a lot of skin in the game about the water condition, surface and groundwater, and they're interconnected. The situation is, obviously, we draw all of our drinking water from the aquifer. Aquifer is fairly shallow. It's the bedrock that also discharges into the stream. My property, my neighbor's properties, Mr. Brown's property, all of that is fed by groundwater discharge. Now, I've done a real rough calculation. The way I saw the site development that Weber Engineering prepared, it looked like, I'll just say about 30 of the 33 acres will have some kind of impervious cover over it. Natural hydrogeologic cycle that we learned about in 8th grade earth science class says it rains, some of it goes off into the stream immediately, some of it evolves into the atmosphere through the trees, the vegetation, and some of it goes on to recharge the groundwater. Now, I estimated, based on some classic values, if we put an impervious surface over this entire acreage, we are going to lose about 25 million gallons of recharge to the groundwater per year. Now, without that water, the endangered species that they found on the site and have now migrated a lot onto my property, Kevin's property, everybody's property in the neighborhood, are going to be threatened. Everybody needs water. Every species, flora and fauna, they got to have water. If that stream dries up, we're going to lose several species that have been identified, and we know they're right there. But once again, I was comforted when I looked at the city's ordinances, and it doesn't talk about just the property being developed. It talks about the community. The ecosystem will be preserved. So, I'm an engineer. I'm a science guy. I rely upon data, fact-based decision-making. You know, I'm just wondering when we're going to see these details to answer whatever it is, like 12 different points in the two city ordinances, mostly 1181 and 1175. All of those things, if we can see the data and know, hey, guess what? Our property values are going to be stable. Here's the data that supports that. And just in conclusion, because Mark, you haven't given me the 5-minute warning yet, but I know it's coming. Dr. Deming, one of the greatest minds of the 1900s, said, in God we trust, everybody else bring data. And my esteemed PE, also here tonight, that's what we learned at school. What data to collect, how to analyze it, and how to work that into our designs. Thank you, and let's not rush into anything until we have that data. And I'm sure we can reach some consensus about what is appropriate that satisfies the city's ordinances, the owner that made a big investment, and protects our fragile environment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Anybody else?
Good evening, everyone. Sean Beck at 8029 McGee Lane. So I guess I'll fall on both Lynn and Steve. You got to hear from the engineers by profession, so now you can hear from a fellow past developer by profession. And I guess the first comment I make is the developer's not here. And that about shows how important it is to this developer. And unfortunately, I'd say one of the reasons not here is because they're out of state, but another reason is because their best advocates are here today in the city. So, I was very close with some people in the city, and their advocates are here. So I'll leave it at that. Matthew's here from the engineering firm, but honestly, that doesn't speak a lot to me as far as a developer that wants to work with the community and hear their concerns and address those. So that'd be my first comment. I'll get back to the script here. So as I started saying, I've been the Skinnell. I've been the bad guy. I've been the guy that buys houses, tears them down, cuts down the trees, and promises all kinds of stuff that never comes true to the city. So, and I worked for a very good developer, but that's development. That's what development is. I've sat at a lot of these meetings. I've heard developers use terms that sound nice to residents. I've heard about collaboration. I've heard about researching things. I've heard about checking things. But unfortunately, unless the city is extremely strong in following up on those things and holding the developer to those things, who, by the way, has highly paid people that do that every single day for a living. You guys are amazing volunteers, but these guys do this every day to make a profit and to make a big frickin' bonus at the end of the year. So you're competing with that. Nothing the developer does as a concession for any of this is beneficial for them. Let's just say it that way. Everything goes against their bottom line. More trees, that's less money in their pocket. Bigger mound, higher wall, less money in their pocket. That's why they're going to avoid, and they always do the bare minimum. Seen it time and time again. That being said, they're free to practice business and pursue profit. I don't disagree with that. They bought the property, they own the property. But let's not be naive and think that the developer has any care or interest in our local community, because they don't. So why'd they buy this site? Why is this old mill site the site? Well, it was really cheap. It was very cheap. Here's the key though. It was cheap land to develop because it doesn't have sewer and doesn't have water and doesn't have access. And Skinnell knows that. Skinnell knew that. But what's Skinnell do before they buy a big property in a city? They call the city. They call Lynn, they call Ted, they call the city. They don't buy big properties without calling the city and talking it through. So Skinnell is dependent on knowing the city's gonna work with them and let them change Old Mill Road, improve it, expand it, drive their trucks down that road so that they can make their profit and ship it back to Indiana. Now, that's Skinnell's decision to do that. It's a business decision. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. I say in this time it doesn't have to work out. And maybe they shouldn't be so comfortable with the city taking into account their needs and be willing to work on that. Because you guys are the ones that can stop it. You can. There are ways. There's cities that fight developers very, very hard, and I really expect that of you guys. So let's look at how the developer proposed their plan. So one thing, if you look at these plans, they're maxed out, right? The buildings were maxed out on the site plan. Maxed out. Smallest amount of barrier around them as they can do. Well, why do they do that? Because we all come here tonight and we say, hey, this is too big, this is obnoxious, this is ridiculous. And they say, we'll work with you. We're great. We're a nice developer. We're working with the community. We'll reduce it. We'll increase the setback by 50 more feet. That's why they do that. I've drawn the site plans, Matthew. I've done that. And it's exactly what we freaking did. I'll tell you what else we did. There was one house that wouldn't sell in a development I did. What did we do? We brought the biggest freaking equipment we had in there, cleared every tree, cleared all the dirt around that house. And that's aggressive, freaking tactical development that you guys let happen to the Campbells. You chased them out of their house. Do you think they have a choice if they have to sell their house at this point? No, they don't, because they're never going to sell their house to anyone for anything after this. The house that they worked for. That's aggressive development tactics that you guys watched happen because you approved the clearing permit without any forethought. Not to mention without any thought about your supposed sustainability plan. That's disappointing. That's poor leadership. It's pathetic and honestly embarrassing. This is the process we've seen from the city so far. A lack of any kind of proactive reviewing of the site and for this clearing plan, of thinking, how do we create a sustainable development in this area? How do we protect the residents around it? No, putting a 19-foot wall along someone's property line is not protecting the properties around them. It's not. I don't care if Skinnell says that. I don't care if they offer to pay for it. It's not protecting their property. If I bought a house next to one of you and put a 20-foot wall up next to you, you'd be pissed. So this is what we've seen from the city so far. A very close relationship with Skinnell, a very friendly relationship. You guys have a good history together doing other developments. And what I mean by that is you have a good history of helping Skinnell make a lot of money. Because honestly, that's the only reason Skinnell's in Twinsburg, right? They don't live here, they're not here. This isn't about Twinsburg, this is about Skinnell making money. They're allowed to make money, but they need to make money in ways that are responsible to the community around them. And you guys are the only guard between that. So what I've seen at this point is that either the city is somewhat ignorant of development practices, or they're essentially corrupt and willing to let Skinnell do whatever they want to do. I don't know which it is. It's not really my problem, but it's one of the two, because otherwise what's happened so far doesn't make any sense. So we demand that you guys start acting with responsibility and diligence, not only to us, the residents, but also to the environment. I mentioned that already, the sustainability plan. It's kind of a joke that while you guys were finalizing your sustainability plan, you were doing clear-cut development. There's absolutely no reason for that. It took a half hour of thought on the part of the city to review that clearing plan and say, hey, let's leave up 20 feet, 50 feet of trees around the perimeter of this property until you show us where you're putting the buildings. It makes no sense to clear cut a property and then for Matthew to come here and say, oh, we're gonna plant trees. What kind of trees are you gonna plant, Matthew? Are they part of the local environment? They're not. You plant 4-inch crappy trees that take years to grow. It's a joke. Has nothing to do with saving the environment. It's to meet a requirement by the city that Lynn threw out. That's not being sustainable. The first step of being sustainable is conservation, protecting what you have, protecting the virgin forest, protecting the virgin land, and protecting your community. That's sustainability, that's conservation. Maybe that wasn't part of your plan, but it sure should be. Twinsburg's gonna reap some tax benefits, I assume. I guess that's why you guys are advocating for this. The local residents are gonna have nothing to deal with but heavy trucks, exhaust, light pollution, noise pollution, safety issues, traffic, and everything else everyone here has mentioned today. Also, a company could come in, be buddy-buddy with the city, and send their profits back to Indiana. So I'm not going to say what everyone else is saying that, hey, maybe we should look at this different. No, I'm just going to say straight out, this is not the right land for this project. And I request Skinnell, who couldn't be bothered to be here tonight, and the city strongly consider a completely different option. Skinnell bought this land at a very low cost, very low cost. And what's the first thing they did? They cleared the trees. Why did they clear the trees last year? Because lumber prices were going through the roof. I talked to the loggers, I talked to the Amish group that was out there. They went in there and cleared out the trees for money. With you guys not having a plan or any kind of, even an idea of what they were gonna build that year, because they weren't gonna build that year. You should have known it, we all knew it. They cleared the trees so they could get the money out of there, and they did that. Okay, so that shows the level you guys are reviewing this and protecting the residents. You let them clear the land, okay. You know what, they got a decent amount of their money per acre back on that lumber, I can guarantee you that, for what they paid for it. So now where do we go from here? Well, I think the city needs to block this. I think it's as easy as this. We don't do improvements on Old Mill. There you go. We're not adding sewer and water down the whole mill, okay? How are they gonna build there? Things like that. You know, I've done a development where we spent over $1 million on privacy shielding of trees and mounding. Okay, we'll make those requirements so big for Skinnell that this is no longer the profitable property to do it. Do it on a property that was previously developed, that's not virgin forest. And so what do we do from here from our property? Well, another tactic of developers is you go in and clear, because now what? Now what we're gonna do, it's too late, the woods are gone, our forest is gone, the natural environment's destroyed. So now it's like, wow, we almost need them to come back and finish it, right? It's not true. This would be a great little donation for Skinnell. The city could work with them. Make this a conservation area, make it a recreation area. There's other options. Now's the time for the city to stand up. It's been all too clear how friendly and supportive they are of Skinnell, and start being supportive of the residents. I was going to say to Skinnell, you're our new neighbor, and there's not a single person in this room that wants you here. So I think that means it's time to move.
Anybody else come forward?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Karen Labby. I am City Council Ward 3, which is the property is on. And curiously, tomorrow we're voting on a resolution in the, I'm going to quote it for you. Whereas the Council of the City of Twinsburg recognizes the opportunity to protect the character and quality of life in the city, preserve open space, and protect water quality. There are so many people in here who have a wealth of knowledge. My husband is also an engineer. As I said to Lynn, dumb it down for me. I had the opportunity to meet with Lynn and his wife Elsa, and Don and Mark Kowski, and walk the property. It's beautiful property. Tugs at this New Hampshire girl's heart to live in that area. Planning, I'm encouraged by your questions. I'm asking you stick your heels down and make there be answers to that question. Lynn, thank you for so much for all your research. It's impeccable as always. My father was a developer. He was a very large building developer. He only cut down the trees where the building stood. Now that may be old school, but that's the way we did it in New Hampshire, okay? Small, as less trees as possible. And New Hampshire is still a lot more green than Ohio is. One of the items in our new sustainability pamphlet that we got last week encourages people to come out and defend the sustainability. I mean, this is awesome. This is exactly what the city needs, and I thank you guys for One of the things Lynn mentioned, and I believe you said it, is the drilling and the boring down into the rock to see about the water. I don't know the name. Can you help me out with the name of the study?
Yeah, the hydrogeologic study.
Which they said they were going to do, correct?
Yeah, and at this point, I haven't seen any details. I don't know.
I'm an action item person. I'd like to see an action item. I'd like to see a date where that's going to be completed by before anything goes forward. I'd also like to see some verbiage that we make, if this goes through, them for continued water quality, whether it's every year, every 2 years, whatever it be, to make sure that whatever's running off into their water is acceptable. Water is something we all need to live. It's one of the basic elements we need. It's very important. Put yourself in their position. I did. I understand it. I'm just asking you to really listen, really pay attention, and dig your heels in with Skinnell to do what they say they're going to do and to get verbiage that backs it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Tracy Dowd. I live in Cuyahoga County, 3320 Ingleside Road, Shaker Heights. My husband and I, and the reason I'm here is because my mother-in-law, Elsa de Cardenas, and my father-in-law live on Old Mill Road. My husband and I recently got off of active duty in the United States Marine Corps after 9 years. We had the very unique opportunity to travel not only the country, but the world. We were stationed in North Carolina, in Rhode Island, in Virginia. I'm originally from San Diego, California. My husband and I spent the last 3 years in Okinawa, Japan. The reason that I share this with you is to tell you that you have something incredibly special, unique on Old Mill Road in this town. The first time that I came here was with my then boyfriend, now my husband, Devin, and I was blown away. I have never seen a town with such community and the trees. I can't even tell you that. I'm from San Diego. I'm from Encinitas, a small coastal town, and I've lived there for 37 years. And can I tell you the difference, transformative difference in a bad way, that development, without being properly and responsibly checked, has had in San Diego. You want to look at the fires and the water crisis. You want to look at overcrowding. You want to look at traffic. You want to talk about an overall decrease in quality of life. It starts incrementally, gentlemen, with actions like this. So by background, I'm a lawyer. I'm a criminal lawyer. I am not an engineer. I do not have specialized knowledge. But I can tell you as a criminal lawyer, one of the first things I do in a case is request an expert. It's one of the very first things I do. And judges grant it, whether it's a forensic pathologist, a DNA expert, and that's because I don't know the right questions to ask, gentlemen. And I would respectfully submit to you that perhaps in this situation, that specialized, particularized knowledge, education, experience, that would benefit this council, that would put these homeowners and community members, that would reassure them that not only are you doing your due diligence and critically thinking, you aren't accepting simply as is the answers and the platitudes that you receive from this company, that you know the right questions to ask and you're holding their feet to the fire, because there are no do-overs. There are no do-overs. And if there is a mistake, contamination, pollution, or the community is just irrevocably changed in intrinsic ways, it is these folks right here that bear that burden. I'm in Shaker Heights. I will feel for my in-laws, but they are the ones who will feel that. And I ask you to internalize that. You all have a powerful, powerful duty and position here. You are the backstop. You are the protection. You are the voice of this community. And if there's anything that speaks to me, it is leadership. You don't spend 9 years as a United States Marine Corps officer and walk away without leadership. And so if there's one message that I ask that you go home and think about, sleep on, internalize, it is to lead from the front. It is to ask tough questions. It is not to apologize for making this company to do their work from the beginning and to do it right. You have been given incredible insight from engineers and, sir, from you, and then the last speaker as well. I mean, and from neighbors. I mean, Don can tell you anecdotal evidence of the numbers of cars that are driving up and down. I mean, our former truck driver can tell you not only, it's not just about, traffic, Mr. Mayor, it's about air pollution, noise pollution, it's about, Waze, Google Maps, Apple Maps. How are those 400 parking spaces gonna get filled? It's not just semis coming up and down. If Google Maps, Waze, and Apple is taking them all the way down Old Mill Road. These are complex, integrated issues. And I feel like we are just at the tip of the iceberg of doing our homework. We have to do more. And so that is what I'm asking, gentlemen, that you do more, that you ask more, that you ask critical questions, and that you lead from the front. Thank you.
My name's George Harabin, 2414 Old Mill Road, Hudson, Ohio, which I don't like to say Hudson, Ohio, because I'm proud to be in Twinsburg Township. I'd be just as proud if it was Twinsburg City, where I live, because it's just beautiful. We're the newbies on the block, you might say. We're going to be 6 years that my wife and I moved to our location on Old Mill. And we did it because we loved the country. It's been mentioned, but it's definitely, I would tell people all the time, our old friends, I said, Old Mill is an anomaly. It's like the last country road in this whole area. We moved from Brunswick, which we were at for 43 years, and it's like just overcrowded. I mean, it's just horrible now. So anyway, it is a special place, that road, Old Mill Road. One of the things I just want to say is I think we got off on a wrong foot of this whole development by people finding out about it when trees started falling. I don't know what happened there. Our neighbors that actually adjoin this property that's being developed, they didn't know anything about it. Those of us on the other side of the street didn't know anything about it. Somebody dropped the football here. I don't know who, because I just don't know. But it's that put a bad taste in everybody's mouth that we didn't know this was coming like this. My background is an earth science teacher, so I have a little science. I was also a landscaper. I'm not being over dramatic, I hope, but I actually got sick to my stomach when I saw those 30, 40 foot tall evergreens just being chopped down one after another. It didn't take them more than 20, 30 seconds to cut them with those machines and just drop them one after another. I just, being a landscaper, there's trees where I planted 40 years ago. I can go back to that tree. I planted that evergreen. I planted, at commercial places in Brunswick and everything. So it was, it just really almost not killed me, I just get over it, but it was just sickening. And that right away, like, who's running this project? Why would you cut down those trees right next to the road? If you're going to have a buffer of some sort, you could have left those natural trees that probably are 30, 40 years old, beautiful spruce trees. Who did that? I mean, that was just ridiculous. So anyway, just to give you a little background, that's why everybody's kind of upset about this. There's a lot of things that are going on that just don't make any sense at all. One question, who's going to be responsible if our well water is damaged, is ruined? Are we going to go back on the developer and sue them for it, or what? How does that work? I don't know. I'm not into that, but I think the developer needs to think about that. The only other thing, the recharge, something's been mentioned, definitely covering that much impermeable surface, you need that recharge for groundwater. I mean, that's basic earth science and hydrology. The only other thing is, this project to me does not fit Twinsburg's motto, naturally beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tyus Petzalik. I live at 2646 Old Mill Road. I forfeited my time, so I'll just briefly just say I bought my house May. Went on contract May 2020. So I'm the newest one on the street, I believe. We bought the house. We were looking for a house for 4 years, and we went through wells, and the water just didn't smell right. You had high sulfur, you had iron, you had just, the water wasn't good quality. And this is out of about 55 houses I looked at, there were only 2, and this is the one that I bought. The farm-like asset on the road, country road, that's why we bought the house. And it would have changed the perspective of buying the house if we would have known that there was an industry building being built down the road, traffic and everything. So it's just a concern of everything that everyone brought up. I just would hope that you guys would put yourself in our shoes and see our concerns. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Tim Hutchinson. I live at 2417 Old Mill Road. I've been a resident there since 1977. And they cut, like everybody else, but nobody didn't know nothing about this till you cut the trees down. And you cut the trees down on my western side of my property line, turn it into a mudslide. And now you want to build a wall? No, thank you. A truck stop is not a good place on Old Mill Road. Thank you.
My name's Glenn Pleta, P-L-E-T-A, 2238 Old Mill Road. I think this comes down to money and quality of living. I've had some of your kids at my house. We live there for a reason. That's why we don't live in Twinsburg. But you're gonna take most of what we say and throw it out because we don't vote for any of you guys. It's all about Twinsburg money. You don't care if we can stomp and scream all we want, nothing's gonna be done. It's about the tax dollar. You guys want that tax base. I think we have enough facilities in Twinsburg to handle anything else that comes in Twinsburg. How many empty buildings are sitting up at Enterprise Parkway? Or Case? Nobody knows. Does anybody go to the developer and say, hey, why don't you move into this place right here? That's better truck traffic, better, easier for you. No, it's all about the money. I don't think you guys are going to take any of our issues to heart. It's going to be all about the money. You guys enjoy.
All right, thank you everybody for coming out and sharing your thoughts with us this evening, your concerns. A lot to think about.
I already spoke. I apologize. Matthew Upley again, 2668 Old Mill Road. Last week, Friday, we had a massive tree fall on the street, take out the power for the street for about 4 hours. If trucks were driving down the street, what is their if a tree's blocking the road, what is their expectations of getting around the tree? Expect them to back out Old Mill Road onto 91? Just a thought. I wanted to communicate that because we had a big tree fall Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, you had some closing comments?
Yes, I just want to share. This has not been an easy situation. You know, probably unaware of a lot of you. I mean, there's been hundreds and hundreds of hours spent talking, looking at our code, behind the scenes, in the building department. We have councilmen that show up. we do care. I know it's challenging when this gets presented. It is also for us. This property has been zoned industrial since the 80s. It's something that was voted on, or code's been voted on. We do what we can. I mean, it's frustrating when we're called crooks, or that we don't care. Or I mean, it's kind of sad. I mean, we all have a passion for this community and representing our residents and doing what we can to protect within our with our code and what we can do. And we want to try to help any way we can if we can legally do it. I mean, in a previous life, I was an attorney. I sued cities and I represented cities. So I know what goes into these types of projects. Financially, I know it is a lot about down to building this. I mean, they're not building to not make money. We understand that. We want to try to do whatever we can, but unfortunately, we get in a situation where we can't I can't walk around the city and go, okay, I want this to be built here, I want this to be built here. I mean, someone put a roll your own smokes in the center of my town. You know how many emails I got about roll your own smokes? But it was zoned properly, it was permitted, and there was nothing we could do to stop it. I mean, we can try to regulate as much as we can to make it as appealing as possible, but for those that remember, we had a roll your own smokes in the center of our town. I mean, I understand that this is something that it's not going to end here. We're going to continue to make sure that all your concerns, everything that we can possibly do to address your concerns within our legal right to do so, we're going to enforce and we're going to do. But this board and I know council can't just say we don't want something in a particular spot. All we can do is try to work within our code, work within the property rights of the property owner, and do what we can to make the project, if it goes through, the best we can to help the residents. I know sometimes it's difficult to understand that, but it's a difficult position for us to be in also, because we do want to see what. I mean, I know Old Mill. I've been. I know the property's there, but Scott here, we've had the same conversations. So I just want to let you know. I mean, we will continue to do whatever we can to, if this development goes through, and I know our board will also make sure that it meets every type of regulation that we as a city have, and anything that the EPA will enforce, so forth. I just, it's a difficult situation. So.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda for the regular meeting is communications and miscellaneous. David, did you have anything? Steve? Pete?
Everything.
Greg?
No, thank you. Nothing.
Scott? No. Lynn, what do we have on the horizon?
We will have a meeting, our third meeting in March on the 21st. We have is it the 21st?
Third meeting in March. Today's our first meeting in March. Our second meeting on the 21st.
Yeah.
And do we have other things?
Yes, we do have other applications
on the agenda. All right. Then seeing nothing else, adjournment at 8:50.